Decades of justifying and excusing criminality have led us to a point where people who commit blatant first-degree murder are celebrated. Around 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday, a man named Rodney Hinton went to his lawyer's office in Ohio and watched body camera footage of his son's death. And in particular, the footage shows Hinton's 18-year-old son, Ryan, emerging from a stolen vehicle while carrying a handgun. At one point, Ryan drops the gun and then picks it up, and soon afterward, he's shot and killed by a police officer. None of these facts are in dispute. The video makes it all very clear. Watch.
He's got a gun. He's got a gun on your right. On your right.
In a matter of seconds. It all began with a stolen vehicle, a Kia from Edgewood, Kentucky. GPS tracking led the investigation here, a condo complex in East Price Hill. Officers arrived, and Chief Terry Thiegy explains what happened next.
All four individuals get out and start running.
On your right. On your right.
Some in different directions. So officers decide which individual they're going to pursue. One officer decides to pursue the individual who we now know had a firearm in his hand.
At some point, the person with the gun slips.
They heard the metal from the firearm hit the concrete. This individual gets up, still has the firearm in his hand, and continues to run through the dumpsters.
Now, the reason the Hinton family was watching this footage in an attorney's office is that, of course, they were contemplating a lawsuit against the city for wrongful death. That was certainly what their attorney was thinking about. In fact, even after viewing this footage, the family's lawyer, who incidentally works for the Cochran firm, as in the late Johnny Cochran's firm, maintained that they had a case. And here's what the family's lawyer said as a way of arguing that the police officers were somehow responsible in this scenario. Quote, being in a stolen car, having a firearm, firearms, we're in Ohio, you know, so you can open carry in Ohio. That's not a death penalty, close quote. Now, admittedly, it's not quite as catchy as if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit, but it's still a pretty remarkable line of argument from the Cochran firm, all things considered. After watching the footage of Ryan Hinton exiting a stolen car with a handgun, then dropping the handgun and picking it up as police chased him, and then turning towards the officers, the conclusion from these lawyers is that Hinton was murdered simply for open carrying a firearm. He got the death penalty for doing nothing wrong whatsoever, even though his gun wasn't holstered and even though he was waving it around while committing a felony. And even though all of this is recorded, we're supposed to conclude that Ryan Hinton was open carrying, and that's why he was shot. Now, this is a level of shamelessness that in another era would lead to a flurry of lawyer jokes on late night television, but it's not a joke to millions of people at the moment. It certainly wasn't a joke to Rodney Hinton, the father of the teenager who was killed. Just hours after he viewed the body camera footage of his son's death, Rodney Hinton got in his car with the intent of executing a police officer. He saw it as an act of revenge, and ultimately he found a target. He ran over a recently retired sheriff's deputy who was directing traffic outside the commencement ceremony at the University of Cincinnati. The slain officer, a Hamilton County deputy named Larry Henderson, had never met the killer before. They'd never exchanged words. Watch.
Recently retired sheriff's deputy is dead after police say a driver intentionally hit him. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tricia Mackey.
And I'm Rob Williams. Cincinnati police say the driver is the father of an 18-year-old who was shot and killed by police yesterday.
Cincinnati police say the father of the 18-year-old who was shot and killed by Cincinnati police on Thursday was driving the car that hit and killed a deputy Friday afternoon. Rodney Hinton Jr. is now charged with aggravated murder for the deputy's death.
Medical. Medical. We need this shut down right now. Officer down. Officer down.
Cincinnati police say the deputy was directing traffic ahead of UC's graduation ceremony when he was struck by a vehicle entering the intersection. It happened around 1 p.m. at the intersection of Martin Luther King Drive and Burnett Woods Drive near UC's campus.
Now, Rodney Hinton knew that the police were justified in killing his son because they had just watched the body camera footage. He knew that the police did nothing wrong. If the father wanted to take revenge on anyone for causing his son's death, well, he should have taken revenge on himself. I mean, if your 18-year-old son is out with a gun stealing cars, it means you failed as a father. Okay? Even a minimal amount of fatherly guidance would avoid a situation like that. Kids make bad decisions doesn't always mean that it's an indictment on the parents. But if kid's only 18 and he's already out with a gun committing felonies, then you failed in the most basic way imaginable. So blame yourself. It's on you. But instead of taking revenge on himself, Rodney Hinton decided to kill a police officer who was directing traffic. So this should be an open and shut case in every sense. The father is a murderer. His revenge, obviously, cannot be justified legally. And any hope of defending it morally is destroyed by the fact that, it's murder. It's destroyed by that. But also, the shooting of Ryan Hinton was justified. So it's not even like, he's taking revenge on someone who murdered his kid. And also, the cop he killed had nothing to do with it anyway. So this is not like a Gary Plauché situation where a father ambushed and killed a man who kidnapped and molested his son. This is an act of premeditated, cold-blooded murder against a random white cop who is entirely innocent and had nothing to do with the situation at all. And yet, stop me if you've heard this one before, this murderer is being lionized and defended on social media. The father who just executed a sheriff's deputy in order to avenge his criminal son who flashed a gun at the cops is the latest celebrity in certain corners of social media. The viral clips defending this murderer are all over TikTok. You can go to TikTok if you want and see it's all over. Just type in his name and you'll see just nothing but these kinds of videos. So here's just one example.
Now, mind you, the kid is only 16 years old. They said he had a gun. This is what they said. But in that picture, it looked like he was running away. So I don't see the threat. But sad as it may sound, when this happened, they actually show his father the video of them unaliving his son. And that's what led to this. As you can see, it's a bunch of officers. It's a bunch of them in the courtroom surrounding the father while he's in an orange jumpsuit. Now, why is this father in an orange jumpsuit? Police didn't shoot him. You might ask, right? Because the very next day, he took justice in his own hands and went and unalived a police officer.
Well, he gets the age of the so-called kid wrong as he's, showing these sympathetic photos in the background. Ryan Hinton was 18, not 16, when he jumped out of the stolen car with a firearm. But the bigger issue with the video is the claim that the father, quote, took justice in his own hands by murdering a random police officer. Notice how there's no pretext here about how the officers did something wrong or violated procedure or any of that. There's no explanation of how it's justice to kill a random traffic cop or to unalive a traffic cop, as this guy puts it. It's just assumed that killing a random white police officer is an appropriate response to the death of a black criminal. And millions of people find this reasoning persuasive at the moment. That's the situation we're in right now. For the past half century or so, every aspect of American civic life has been devoted, at least superficially, to preventing a situation like this. If you spend trillions of dollars enacting a regime that rigidly enforces the seemingly laudable goal of racial equality, and then, surely, eventually, you'll arrive at a point where all men are judged based solely on the content of their character. That was supposed to be the idea anyway. That's the grand experiment we've all been participating in for our entire lives. And with each passing day, it's becoming more and more clear that this experiment is crashing down all around us. We are heading very directly towards open and overt racial conflict. And to that end, here's another similar video, which has more than 20,000 likes on TikTok. We'll mute the audio because it's just obnoxious rap music, but here's what it looks like. It shows Rodney Hinton in court in a jumpsuit, surrounded by a bunch of police officers. And there's the caption that the uploader has added, quote, "They really tried to use over 30 deputies to intimidate Rodney Hinton, but he kept his head up," close quote. Again, this post has more than 20,000 likes. It's not some random troll that didn't get any attention. It's one of the most popular posts about Rodney Hinton's arrest, and people are responding to it because they genuinely believe that Hinton is a hero, or at the very least, he was justified, or at the very least, he's a sympathetic figure. There's no rational argument that he's innocent, or that he was actually justified, or that his son was innocent. So this is just pure racial resentment spilling right out in the open. That's all it is. There's a lot of talk about government debt, but after 4 years of inflation, the real crisis is personal debt. Seriously, it's possible you're working harder than ever and still struggling with credit card debt and overdue bills. That's why you need Done With Debt. If you're tired of feeling trapped by debt, the team at Done With Debt offers smart, effective strategies to help you pay off what you owe much faster. Break free from the cycle and keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket. Done With Debt doesn't try to sell you a loan or bankruptcy. Their tough negotiators go one-on-one with your credit card and loan companies with one goal: to drastically reduce your bills, eliminate interest, and erase penalties. Most clients end up with more money in their pocket month one, and they don't stop until they break you free from debt. Take a few minutes and visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their strategists. It's free, but keep in mind, some of their solutions are time sensitive, so you'll need to move quickly. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Another post with roughly 70,000 likes on TikTok describes Rodney Hinton as a mourning father, complete with somber music. We'll play part of that. Now, you look around any social media platform and you'll find plenty of posts like this. It's not just TikTok. On X, here's a post with roughly 700 likes. Quote, Rodney Hinton had no criminal record before he killed an Iowa cop in retaliation for the cops killing his son. The police department brought 30 cops to his hearing to intimidate him. Close quote. So apparently you get to kill a cop if you have no prior criminal record, and the police aren't allowed to guard you either, even after you've just murdered somebody. Then there's this post with more than 1,000 likes. Quote, all I'm saying is if a cop killed my son, I'm airing out the precinct. Rodney Hinton Jr. is a saint and a hero. Close quote. Now, yesterday we discussed the story of Shiloh Hendricks, the woman who has now raised hundreds of thousands of dollars after using a racial slur at a playground. What's happening now with Rodney Hinton is yet another example of why Shiloh Hendricks raised all that money. You know, if you're saying that justice is somehow served by the execution of a random white police officer in the name of defending a thug who stole a car and flashed a gun, and many people are saying this, then you don't get to clutch your pearls because of Shiloh Hendricks. I mean, the standards are so wildly out of whack that it's just not sustainable. That's what we're experiencing right now. Okay? Like saying it's okay if we kill people, but not okay if you use naughty language. That's not just a double standard. That's flat out madness. That's a kind of moral schizophrenia. And again, it's an unsustainable approach. It can't continue this way. And with every day, it becomes more and more apparent that we simply cannot continue on this trajectory. You know, people are tired of it. If large numbers of black people are openly defending and cheering for actual murderers who kill white people in cold blood, then you cannot tell white people that they have to make a big show of condemning a woman who said a bad word. And that's especially true as more and more white people are executed without any media attention whatsoever. For example, you probably haven't heard of this story of a 22-year-old woman named Logan Federico in South Carolina. Here she is on the left. And according to the authorities, Logan Federico was, quote, randomly murdered by a career criminal who was on a spree of thefts, break-ins, and credit card fraud. And that career criminal, named 30-year-old named Alexander Dickey, allegedly broke into a neighboring home around 3 a.m., stole a firearm, credit card, and debit cards, and keys to a vehicle. He then allegedly entered the house where Federico was staying, entered a room, shot her before fleeing the scene in a stolen vehicle, close quote. So this is yet another person that, you know, has committed multiple crimes, given chance after chance after chance, because what the justice system says to people like this is that we're going to keep putting you on the street, keep putting you back on the street until you do something so heinous that we have no choice but to put you in prison for an actual, like, significant length of time. That's been the approach. So it's basically like, we're going to let you keep going and criminal and victimizing people until you kill someone. We're just going to wait for that to happen, and then we will deal with you. Now, somehow that story didn't get much national attention, and neither did this one involving the execution of Tara and Taylor Jones in front of their home in the affluent neighborhood of Wellington, Florida last year. Surveillance footage shows that Tara and Taylor Jones were shot to death by a 63-year-old mechanic named Norman Scott without any provocation of any kind. Again, there was no outrage. There was no public show of support for these victims. Instead, we're now at the point where 3, count them, 3 cold-blooded killers in the span of a few months have found large cheering sections on social media, including Rodney Hinton, Carmelo Anthony, and Luigi Mangione. In fact, one of these viral TikTok videos supporting Rodney Hinton with more than 20,000 likes actually brings up Luigi Mangione in this context. Watch.
That silent rage, and you know, people mistake black Americans sitting out. People mistake that black Americans sitting out doing line dances and stuff. That's a dangerous thing. When I tell you, that's a dangerous thing. And this happened with more than just black Americans months ago. Yeah, this happened with Luigi. Silent, never been in trouble. Just like Mr. Rodney Hinton Jr. Silent rage. That's some serious stuff. The laws of this country and what's going on in this country pushing things to the brink. People can say it started with a stolen car. People can say, oh, this, and no, it didn't start there. It didn't start there at all. It doesn't start on the streets. It didn't start on the streets when Luigi did it. It didn't start on the streets when Mr. Hinton did it. It started right with the lawmakers and the rich folk who are always putting too much pressure on everybody else for decades and decades. And when that pressure has nowhere else to go, it points back to set itself free. It's a dangerous game.
The lawmakers are responsible. So what? The law against stealing a car, is that what we're blaming? The law is what pushed Rodney Hinton. So it's, because that's the law. The law is you can't steal a car, and this guy did, and that's why the cops were there. And then you can't brandish a gun at the cops when they're trying to arrest you for committing a felony. So those are the laws that are responsible for this. The law that says you can't steal a car, and also the law that says you can't brandish a gun at the cops. Right. Well, there is one useful aspect of this totally inane video that we just watched, which is that it makes the point that the situation isn't all about race. Luigi Mangione was obviously white, and plenty of people justified his actions too. In fact, as you probably recall, some people who call themselves conservatives also justified Luigi Mangione's actions. And that tells us that we're witnessing a general breakdown of law and order on top of the racial violence. Decades of justifying and excusing criminality have led us to a point where people who commit blatant first-degree murder are celebrated, at least if they're viewed as allies of the political left. And again, we've had now 3 of these cases in 5 months. So as you continue to hear the high-pitched outrage over Shiloh Hendricks, keep in mind that nothing she did in any universe could ever end your life or the life of anyone you care about. The people cheering the execution of an innocent police officer or a CEO or a white high school student at a track meet, on the other hand, are actually dangerous. They're the ones you should be hearing about nonstop. They're the actual threat to you and your family. They're the ones who are trying to bring about a complete breakdown in law and order. They're the ones who want racial conflict. And as the execution of this police officer in Cincinnati once again demonstrates, even if they can't destroy somebody like Shiloh Hendricks, they will still do everything in their power to destroy you. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.